there in one of the bunkers that I will show you where he died. All right, then number 3 turning point. Major Michael Ryan became general. He took command of an assortment of survivors, and if you look at this, you got in mind pretty much the shape of Tarawa. You know, now Tarawa is 1 square mile. It's 2.5 miles long, just to the tip, and only about a half mile wide. It's just slightly smaller than Kwajalein is, a little bit larger than Roy Namur. So I'll give you a little idea. And we landed roughly, say, 7,000 Marines, and the enemy was about 5,000. So that many fighting on 1 square mile for 3 days. And we hardly ever saw them. They were always in a bunker firing out of an aperture or hidden someplace. You didn't know where the fire was coming from. That's what made it so difficult. All right, so then, it was in doubt. This Major Ryan collected a few people. I told you about somebody just taking hold and doing what was available, and they landed on that tip, on the northwest tip. We call it the beak of the island. And it turned out to be a flanking maneuver, because you see the Japanese were along that beach we call Green Beach, which you'll see, and he landed when he hit that tip. He was going right down flank, just rolling them back. And that softened it up to the point where our 6th Regiment came in, their reserve, they came in, they landed on the beach, and they had not very much resistance. They came in. And as they came in, they came right straight down the length of the island, and just basically just kind of outflanked all the way down the island, until they got down here towards the, well, down into, you look at this stuff a little closer when I get through, but down near the end, in this area right through here, the Japanese on the second night, it was the third night, made their major counterattack, about 750, and they kept charging until they lost just about everybody. Almost all of them were killed. I have a picture here of probably the only survivor of that, and a friend of mine, Japanese friend of mine, visited this guy over near Fukuoka on the western side of Japan at his home, and so that's another little human interest story. So that's that. Now, I'm going to read this poem, and that'll, I think that'll give you a flavor, as much as anything, of what it's like for an individual, and that was a turning point for me. It's called Curtains of Fire. Now, you can pick this up, you Google it, type my name in, Curtains of Fire, you can print it out. Okay, the stage curtain opens, revealing Basio Inlet on Tarawa. You can call it Tarawa or Tarawa, whatever you want to do. November 20th, 1943. Disaster looms. Tide too low, naval gunfire inadequate, communications disrupted, a nightmare. The Corps' worst challenge in history. Marines and the Sheridan troop transport climbed down cargo nets into LCVP landing boats. 1st Battalion 8th enters the Atoll Lagoon to assembly area awaiting orders. Communication never received, so circled 20 hours. Imagine circling an LCVP, 20 hours. A first. Finally, seasick men welcomed dawn of the second day. Long, fatiguing night, men crammed on the deck like sardines. Battalion commander's boat chugs by. We're going in at Red Beach 2, and that's the worst one it could possibly have gone into. I glanced at my men. They stare back, expected to land on the left flank. Could have just as well gone down there. Would have been a lot easier. The communications are bad. Our boats arrive at the liner departure. You all know what liner departure is. Wow. Parallel to the landing beaches. Arrayed like a cavalry squadron. Doing some metaphors here. Waiting for bugles to sound charge. Coxswains nervously rev engines in neutral. Boats champing at the bit. Engines blasting. Hearing muffled. Adrenaline surges as we clutch our weapons. Look at the island. Focus on the task ahead. Getting ready. Ready. Like the highwayman here. Anyway, read the poem, The Highwayman. That's the technique used there. Receive go signal. Our coxswain responds. Engine bellows and belches smoke. Water churns behind. Stern dips. Boat leaps forward. Bucketing, bouncing, bowling ahead. Getting closer, closer to the island. Then we hear tiny objects flying by. Zip, zip, zip. Not angry hornets, they're killer bullets. Within range of enemy machine guns. Splat, splat here, splat there, splats to the left, splats to the right, splats in front of us. At the reef, deadly curtain of fire. Spitting from many machine guns. Heavy machine guns now join the fray. Along with anti-boat guns and mortars, destroying many landing craft. Killing and wounding many of our men. Men look grim, resigned to their fate. No stopping now, keep fear under control. Do your duty, don't let buddies down. We're your that, you know. Unexpectedly scrape bottom, metal grinding on coral. Stopped abruptly, thrown forward, cursing that we've run aground. Still 600 yards to go, the coxswain proclaims. This is as far as we go. Ramp screeches open and drops splashing into the water. There before us, Batio beckons in all its menacing glory. Scene from hell. Inferno of fire and smoke, bellowing, bellowing, orange fire, red fire, black smoke curling skyward. First down the ramp, clutching my carbine, shouting, let's go. Leap into water to unknown depths, relieved that only waist deep. Enemy guns rip us apart, indiscriminately as we wade helplessly shoreward through overlapping patterns of fire, like shooting fish in a barrel, no place for protection. Men get hit, cry for help, plead for corpsmen, going under, being chopped to pieces. Nobody is supposed to stop for anybody. If you stop, everybody gets killed. Sounds of battle everywhere, sweeping curtains of fire, machine guns rattling, a cacophony of staccato, hammering, geysers of water, fire and body parts. Keep moving forward, hold rifles above water, into the teeth of inflating gunfire. See, there was a boat out there, there was a freighter that had been hung up on a reef, and the Japanese had gotten out their machine gun and shooting us from the flank. Adrenaline flowing like electric current. I wonder how long my luck will hold. Are those our planes strafing us? Oh, they're attacking that wrecked freighter grounding on the reef, trying without success to terminate enemy machine guns placed there. Finally, inevitably, it happens. A sickening splat, like an inner tube snapped across my bare abdomen. Sharp, stinging sensation. I'm hit, I exclaimed abruptly. A bullet struck me just above the waterline right here. Came out right here. In the waterline, nearly dead center. Almost got a second navel out of it. Near the navel. A gut shot wound, fatal normally. Discard helmet, carbine, walkie-talkie, pack, and lead belt. Energy draining out of me, drifting in the shock. Must keep it above water. PSC Thomas Sullivan hastens to me, asking, Lieutenant, where are you hit? Disobeying orders, stopping for wounded rather than hurrying to the beach. Raises my jacket and inspects my wound. PSC John Duffy, and I'll show you where he's buried. I'll show you a picture on here of his cross. He killed later that afternoon. Applies a bandage, sulfonamide powder floats away. It's on the water, water's above the wound. You're going to get it too, I utter in a weak voice. Leave me, get to the beach. They ignore me. Sullivan asks, should I take you to the beach or to the ship? I respond to the ship for best medical care. He then drags me towards the nearest LCVP landing boat at the reef. He momentarily stops. I ask if he's okay, not hit, just resting from exertion. Reach an LCVP being loaded with wounded, gathered near its bow. Ramp positioned about 3/4 up for bullet protection. Wounded are pushed singly over the bow, lifted over the bow. A husky man waits nearby, unrecognizable, due to a gory eye wound. I motion for him to go before me, and he's boosted up over the ramp. Then Sullivan and Duffy attempt to push me up over. The unknown man exerts his waning energy to help me and another. He reaches down and lifts me up with a burly arm over the ramp. I tumble down onto the deck next to my unknown helper. Over a dozen more lie bandaged, bloody and writhing in pain. Boat races back to the ship, bumping over the water's corrugated surface. My pierced abdomen complains with each jolt. At least if I die, I'll be buried at sea instead of on that island. I recall my parents. They'll be devastated. But maybe I won't die after all. If only this torturous ride would stop. Coxswain encourages us that now approach the Sheridan. Hoisted aboard ship in a litter basket next to the one who had helped me, identified nearly 60 years later as probably Sergeant James Maples, Company C. I didn't know the guy. I gasp. I gasp. We made it. He murmurs, "You're going to make it now." Those were the only spoken words. I made it. He didn't. Before sundown, buried at sea, all of vivid memory. So, okay. So now you can visualize what happened to me, happened to many others, just like that. That's under the worst possible condition you can imagine on a salt landing. And you know, many times on Guadalcanal, we were shooting at the Japanese coming, not me, but sometimes that's kind of like that. But you heard Edson's Ridge where they were coming, just kept coming and coming. They all just got mowed down. Well, here's us, keep coming and get mowed down. You know, the tables were turned. Okay, now I'm going to Tarawa for the third time on this trip. The first time I went alone. It was 1982. I went alone, and I was gone for 6 weeks, and I was backpack. I was roughing it, and I was going to stay with locals, and I was doing research. I wanted to completely retrace all of my campaign, and so I found my old foxhole on Guadalcanal. Did a lot of working around. I placed where some of the men were killed on one ridge there, and then went to Tarawa, and went to Saipan, and a place where I got wounded there near the top of the mountain. And when their last big bonsai attack was, can you imagine, on Saipan, the last bonsai counterattack of Japanese, 4,000 killed. They just kept coming, and we had to bury 4,000 bodies in a couple of days. And I was company commander at the time, and they just, you know, had bulldozers just make a little trench and had to attach something to their leg or arm and pull them in there. So there's a lot more to talk about on that. But anyway, now getting back to then other places I went. I went to places where I didn't fight, or nobody landed. I'm talking about Yap, Peleliu, and some of those places. So now, in 1983, I took a group out of 5 others, and it was the 40th anniversary of the landing. And I represented President Reagan, the Commandant of the Marine Corps, and the Secretary of the Navy. Secretary of the Navy he wrote a thing for Ronald Reagan. So let me think here. There were about 1,000 locals attended that, and there's a picture. I'll show you a picture of it. And you look at it. Here's a picture of it right here, and it's in their language. We could very well have a big, terrific turnout. It could be. You know, not much is going on a little island like that. Something like that happens, it just attracts them like flies, you know. And I've sent communication down there, email in the last few days, so we'll see what happens. I'll show you some of the photographs I've sent down. These are photographs of kids there that are now middle age. Looking at it, it's going to stir up a little bit of interest, I think. All right. So at that ceremony, I'm going to go on just a little bit about that. I had to. Okay. When we went there, it's very difficult. You know, the reason we're going to C-130s, the air in and out is not very good. And we flew down Air Nauru, and it's no longer in business. And then they got grounded because they weren't keeping their maintenance. So here I was standing there for 2 weeks. and I caught a flight back, luckily, on Air Marshall Airlines. So that's another story. But then and here's what happened at that memorial service. Just to give a little idea of the flavor of what happens when you have these kind of events on a little island like that. And this was in the paper, in their local paper, and they'll probably print up something about us, depending on what we tell them, and Lord knows how it's going to come out. But this is what came out in the paper. A memorial service was held commemorating the 40th anniversary of the Battle of Tarawa. It's held at the Maniaba, which means meeting house, on Bayshore on Sunday, November 20th, 1983. During the service, they were joined by various religious faiths and recalled those, now this is what's written in the paper, and recalled those who fought and died in the battle. Approximately 1,000 Americans died, it's a little more than that, and 2,500 were wounded in 76 hours of fighting. Nearly all the Japanese died, many Korean laborers, according to Roy Thaxton, one of our group. One of the 6 American Marines that came to Tarawa last week. Bayshore is where the most men died in the shortest amount of time. Taking Tarawa was very difficult. Most of the visiting Marines were wounded in the war. I'm talking about we were visiting. At Bayshore, one of us was wounded in the leg, and the other, that's me, got through the abdomen. When the landing boats hit the reef, about, they said 500 yards from the beach, the men disembarked and started wading towards the beach, with the Japanese shooting at them. Looking back, I saw my friends falling in the water, and when I got to the beach, the men continued to come ashore, while others around them were dying in the water. The veterans of fighting at Bayshore 40 years ago were honored by the religious leaders of Kiribati. It's Kiribati, it looks like Kiribati, but you call it Kiribati. They don't pronounce their T's. 2 messages were read during the service. One from the Secretary of the Navy on behalf of President Reagan, and the other from the Commandant of the Marine Corps, that's P.X. Kelly, expressing their sorrow for the loss of lives at Bayshore and some words of comfort to those still living, including